So once you've chosen your photo, you're going to want to consider your composition, and that includes cropping it. And I showed you this application before. It's called hornell.com/apps/photocrop. And you're going to want to, upload your image first, and then put 18 by 24. And this will ensure that this is in the correct aspect ratio of 18 by 24. And when you crop your image, to continue to consider the negative space. Okay, that's the space around the subject. Okay, these are shapes just as much as a positive shape. And consider how it is you want to crop it. Do you want to go tight like this? Do you want to show more of the context of the situation? In this case, it's a dinner party. It's up to you, okay? Do you want to go landscape? Actually, I think you have to switch it right here. Switch it from 18 by 24 to 24 by 18. It should work. There we go. Do you want to go landscape? So these are all going to affect your composition. Okay, and I wouldn't take this part of the process lightly. I would try out many variations and get it exactly how you want it. Okay, but I'm going to do a portrait. I want it kind of like this. And once your photo's cropped how you want it, you're gonna want to press where it says crop and download, and it's gonna put the image right here. And then you could right click and put save image as. Cat. Once you have your image cropped to the correct aspect ratio, then you could bring it into a word processor. I'm using Microsoft Word, and this will allow you to size it. And really, you could put it at whatever size you want. I would recommend having it around 6 by 8 inches. You could go a little smaller, go a little larger. But 6 by 8 inches works well. Okay, and this is close enough. So then I would go print this out, and my image would be ready to draw on. Alternatively, you could print it out and you could cut it by hand. It's another way you could crop it if you prefer that method. Then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to simplify your image into the major shifts in color. Okay, and you're going to want to make that into drawn shapes. And I'll show you what that means. And you're going to want to pull your perception back and kind of squint and just look for those major colors. Those major color shifts. Okay, so for example, I see this light right here. Okay, and one of the ways you could do this is just to separate it into the lights and shadows. And don't worry about the little nuances in color yet. You're going to be stacking those little nuances on to these shapes later. And if you like, you could stylize these shapes. Some people like to make them, curvier or more jagged. That's up to you. Now, the important thing when you draw these shapes in is that the shape connects. Okay, so if this is just a line. Okay, but when you complete the circuit here, you get a shape. So it's important that your shapes, or your lines, connect so they become shapes. Okay, so this right here, it's a line. Now it's become a shape. The best advice I have at this moment is just to keep things simple. Keep the shapes large and simple. Don't worry about the little subtle nuances in color yet. For example, I know there's a little highlight on the eye. I'm not worried about that yet. I could stack that little highlight shape on another layer. If you'd like to add other elements to your pop art painting, I would say start to draw them in now. Experiment with what an explosion would look like, or some stripes, or whatever element you'd like to add. Start playing with it at this stage. Start drawing it in. And feel free to eliminate elements. If there's something you don't want to have there, eliminate it. If it's not adding to your composition, it's likely taken away from it. Okay, so once you've drawn out, the major shifts of color on your photograph, then you're gonna want to grid it. And I'm gonna use, let's see. How's it smaller though? So once you've drawn out the major shifts in color on your photo, then you're gonna want to grid it. Okay, I'm gonna do grid marks every inch. You can also try every half inch. It's up to you. And I'm not gonna go over the gridding process in too much depth because you did it in the last project. Just realize that when you do it on the canvas, you're gonna wanna make sure that you have the exact same amount of squares that you have on the photo that you have on the canvas. Also, when you transfer your contours onto the canvas, you're gonna wanna just transfer the lines you drew. That's all you're transferring at this moment, is the lines you drew onto the canvas. When you transfer your grid onto the canvas, you're gonna wanna make sure that the increments you use on your photograph are proportionally bigger on your canvas. So let me explain what that means. So I printed my image out at 6 inches by 8 inches. So if my photo is 6 inches by 8 inches, then what that means is that if I use an inch increment on the photo, then when I go to the canvas, I'll be using a 3-inch increment. And the way you find that out is you just divide one of the dimensions. So I'm gonna divide the height of the canvas by the height of the photo. And the height of the canvas is 24 inches, and the height of the photo is 8 inches. So that means that the canvas is 3 times larger with regard to its dimensions. And so that means that the increments will need to be 3 times larger on the canvas. If I printed my photo out at 9 by 12 and I made 1-inch increments on the photo, then on my canvas I would make 2-inch increments, because now the dimensions are twice as large on the canvas. So that means that a 1-inch increment will become a 2-inch increment on the canvas. But since I used a 6 by 8 inch photo, when I transfer my grid onto my canvas, I'll be using 3-inch increments because I use 1-inch increments on the photo. And in my case, my photo is actually a little bit short. Okay, it's not quite 8 inches tall. It's like 7 1/4. So I'm actually gonna have some squares that are not complete squares, and that's okay as long as all the rest of the squares are perfect squares. It's okay to have some incomplete squares at the edge. You could always just use your imagination and fill them in later on the canvas. As before, you're going to want to label your grid alphabetically on top. And you're going to want to you're going to want to label it numerically vertically. Okay, and now your grid is complete on your photograph. Okay, and since on my photo, I made 1-inch grids and it's a 6x8 inch. So since my photo is a 6x8 and this is an 18x24 inch canvas, then that means, okay, the height is 24 and the height of my photo is 8, which means the dimension's 3 times larger on the canvas. So if I did a 1-inch increment on the photo, I'm gonna do a 3-inch increment on the canvas. Now, if you're doing something that needs to be more precise, then perhaps you could do a 1/2-inch increment on your photo, and then do whatever that's going to be on here, a 1.5-inch increment. You had a 6x8-inch photo. And if you need to review the grading process, then just look at the video I did for the photorealistic painting project. Okay, so I'm not gonna go over, how to transfer the contours to this, because I did that in the last project. But the one thing to bring your attention to is just make sure that you're drawing the lines that you drew into this. That's what you're transferring. Okay, so I want to show you a technique for grading. So if there's an area that you need to be more precise, for example, like where the eye is at, then what you could do is you could draw, or you could break up your square into triangles. Okay, so you just draw an X. Okay, so from one corner of the triangle to the other, and from the other corner of the triangle to the other corner. Okay, as well as on the other side. Okay, there you go on here. Okay, and then you draw that same X lightly on the canvas. Okay, and then you could use these lines as reference points for when you draw your shapes. So it just provides another reference point so you can get more accurate shapes. And this, I wouldn't do this for the whole thing, but for areas where you need to be a little more precise. such as an eye, needs to be carefully placed. Okay, this second reference point becomes helpful. Okay, maybe a little small. Or maybe this one's a little big. Okay, just like that. When you're done transferring your contours to your canvas, then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to line up or erase your grid. And this is what mine looked like after I did that.